Hello YouTubers, Tross here again. I'm continuing my Minecraft Minecart Transport Stations from A to Z video series. And in this video, we'll be doing selector panels and some other strange or non-common station... Well, I'm not saying selector panels are not common. It's just I have some additional not common stations that didn't fit into any of the other videos, so I'm going to be doing them at the end of this video. So let's start off here. So as you saw, as we got more complex or more exits, selecting which exit you wanted became more difficult. And so the solution to that is selector panels. This is a selector panel. It's basically a set of latches that all have a common reset, and when you push one, it turns itself on and it turns the others off. Let's show you that again. So this is kind of an old design. It uses basically a bunch of pistons here to keep track of which one was pressed. This is a slight modification of Pear Squirrel Selector. This is old design going back like 2 years. The selector itself is basically this lower area here, all the stone bricks, and down. The top is just for display. You can actually have different displays. This is kind of a modern display. With the glowstone lamps and the nether brick. But basically, the way this works is when you push the button, the redstone line down here gets powered. No matter which button you press, it gets powered. And that powers these repeaters, which turn off all these torches, which resets the pistons down. But then a tick later, notice these are on 2 instead of those are on 1. A tick later, this will turn off one of these torches, which will lift the corresponding piston up. And of course, once the pistons have moved, they keep these bottom torches in the state to power the piston correctly. So that's how this works. But as I said, this is a kind of old design these days, and you can do this with much less redstone components. So that is what I have here. This is kind of my modern design I came up with. I'm sure others people have come up with it as well. I have basically 2 variations on the design, but these both use droppers, and there's pairs of droppers. The bottom one is facing up, and the top one is facing down, and the way you do that is you kind of just look down and place this one. Then you hold, well, you can hold shift to place a block on top, you place another block, you then break that one, and then you look at the block here, and now it's facing down. So you have they're basically facing into each other, and you put one item inside. So then when you power the bottom one, the item moves up, and when you power the top one, the item will move down. So instead of using the piston, basically there's just pairs of items. You can see here, there's the item in the bottom, and then the one that's powered right now has the item in the top. So this basically works very similar. You can bury this down by one block if you want the buttons at ground level like they are over here. But it works very similarly. You push the button, it turns on this reset line here. I have the reset line going through this, well, I call it a pulse limiter. Some people will call it a monostable circuit. So it just briefly flashes this line over here. We have a little half slab stair to get the signal up top, and then that powers this line here. And because that indirectly, well, the blocks sort of become powered, which power these droppers, which push all the items down. That takes 3 ticks. 1, 2, and 3. The reason why I have a repeater up here is if you can extend this out to 15 wide, but then you need a repeater here so that they all get reset properly. Kind of buried in the middle of the device here is these repeaters set on 4. So this takes 3 ticks to reset and pushes all the blocks down, if any are up. On the 4th tick, though, power gets through from the button you pressed, and that moves the item up for the button you pressed. Then we just have comparators up here that determine which button you pressed, or which one has the block up, and powers the light at the top, or powers the block above the light, which causes the light to come on. And so that's how that works. But you're thinking, all right, what good is this if we're just turning on and off lights? Well, you can get outputs from this. You can get an output in the front by using torches. Obviously, they'll be inverted, but then you can have another layer of torches to invert them back. You can get an output out the back, either inverted or not, by putting another row of comparators. If you don't want it inverted, if you want like this kind of output, you don't need this row of blocks, you can move that back. So it's relatively easy to build. You can put signs up here instead of colored blocks. So let me just show you how to build it quickly. I'll make a small one. Put down your reset line. Put down the set of blocks that the buttons will go on. Put a set of blocks there. You can now put in the repeaters on 4. Now we get the droppers, and I'm holding space and shift at the same time. Actually, I don't need to do that there. Where I do need to do it is here for placing this block. And now, oops. Okay, so that's the hoppers facing up and down. I'm now going to put a block in each one. Now to make the pulse limiter circuit or monostable circuit, put a repeater pointing into a block that's on top of a sticky piston. And I'm just going to have another repeater out. I'm just going to be a little lazy with this design, and instead of having a little ladder of half slabs, I'm just going to make a spiral like that. Basically, the ladder of half slabs make it one block narrower. It doesn't actually have to be half slabs. It's just to save space. Alright, some glowstone lamps, redstone lamps, whatever. I'm not going to use colors here, I'm just going to put blocks, and then comparators. I finally put the buttons on front, and test. So that light came on, and it seems to be working. Great. So there's a few alternate ways to build this. As you can see, there's just this one extra block out here out the back. You can actually get rid of that, and you can attempt to put it on top, but that doesn't exactly work. As I showed in an earlier video, you get a block that, some certain blocks won't turn off. What actually happens is this block gets powered, and because of the butt effect, both the top and the bottom get powered. I'm not entirely sure why it only happens, like in this case, on the green. But the solution to that is you can use half slabs, and half slabs will reset only the top but not reset the bottom, because they themselves don't actually get powered. Just the line, this redstone line does. So that works well. Another variation, this is using a silent monostable circuit to work this. A little hard to see, actually. If you look at the repeater there, it will blink off momentarily. It's the turning on that really pushes the blocks down. So as long as this comes on within the 4 ticks that these delay, this circuit will work properly. So this is one type. We're basically using the fact that it takes the redstone lamps will go out instantly but take a tick to turn on to create a 1 tick off pulse. This design here uses subtraction basically to get a 1 tick on pulse through this comparator and subtract mode. So that's this design. One other feature that this can have is, which is useful for our application, which is going to be choosing a track, is, let's say you've chosen a track and now you are leaving on your minecart, but it takes, the minecart, 5-10 seconds to get through all your track switches. You don't want someone coming up in those 5 or 10 seconds and pressing a button and changing where you happen to be going because you've already left. So there's actually a lockout mechanism that you can build into this design. And here it is. So you just put a row of sticky pistons under these back blocks, and just a row of redstone here. And if it's powered, these blocks will be up in their normal location, and so they get powered by these repeaters, which activates the droppers to move the items up. If you flip this lever, though, these all come down, and now this is just pointed at air blocks, and they won't do anything. So I can try to press. The light comes on as long as the button is pressed, because the button directly powers the light. But the actual option you chose, you can see the torches on the top, doesn't actually change. Same thing happens in the back. So you can have, as your cart leaves, a little timer circuit that turns this off, and then after enough time has passed for the cart to get through all the switches, you can turn it back on. Obviously you use a timer circuit, not a lever, but then this operates normally again. So that's another interesting way to build this. Alright, so now that you have your selector panels, how do you hook tracks up to it to get them to switch? That's a good question. Over here, I have a few examples, but you'd want to build your tracks as close together as possible, because basically that has a button every line, every block. So you want to make a switch every block. So you might want to try something like this. But this doesn't really work too well with one cavet that will come to at the end of the video, but let's say this is, you're coming in this way into the track switches. If they're one block away, powering them doesn't actually normally work. They get kind of locked because this is already turning this way, and it doesn't have an open end for this to flip over to the other side, and then similarly for every other one. So how do you get that to work? Well, the easiest thing to do, say if you're coming in this way, is you have one turn off there, and then another turn off here. You basically have to, the closest you can normally put switches, or track switches, turns, where'd my levers go, is every other block. Well, that one, let's say we come straight out here, so that will turn that, and normally you'd want it in that position. So you basically have to take your every line button selectors and spread them out to be every other line. And there's two main ways of doing that. So here's one way. I have, let's show you the back here first. So you're coming in this way, and right now it's set so you would go straight across and out here. Notice we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 buttons, but really only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 track turns. This last one basically controls you going here or here, where each previous one has you going off or going to the next track switch. So right away, one of these buttons, in this case it's this last one, is not connected to anything. For all the other buttons, we need to take their outputs and spread them out so it comes every other. And this is one way of doing it. It's a little complicated. This one is easy, we can come out the side. All the others, we can't come out the side. So this one, this comparator powers this block, which is powering this dot of redstone, which powers this block. So there is a bit of delay, but normally, by the time you press the button and get in the minecart, these will have all long turned to the correct position. This one powers this block, which powers or unpowers this torch, which powers or unpowers this block, which, comes here. This one is straight through, and then we kind of mirror it on the other side, except we leave off the one coming out the side because one of these we don't need to use. It actually may be better to maybe not use the second one, so you can come out the side, so you don't need as complicated. But this is an almost symmetrical design, and it's one way of doing it. So let's say I press the first button here. Oh, did I not fix you? Wow, I thought I got all of these. Alright, if I push the first button here, there we go. You can see we now will come this way and go out this first line. If I push the second button here, we will skip past this first one, come out the second line. Etc., etc. What happened to you? Did I miss you? I probably missed you. You get the idea. There, we'll come out the third line. Come out the fourth line, etc. So while the selector panel is narrow, it's only 7 wide here, this is twice the width in the back. So that's one way of doing this. Another way of doing this is right over here. And it looks like I did correctly fix this guy. Alright. Is to have a two-level design. Basically, again, one of these is not hooked up. This one is not hooked up. But because you can only turn every other, well, let's use every other on the bottom here, and then we'll go up a level, and we'll catch the ones we missed on the top. That way, the circuit here is rather simple. You know, we just have comparators and either torches or repeaters, and they will pass the signal through or up as needed. And it just so happens that when we're going, let's push this one here. So when we're going this way, we need to turn to the right to leave, or have this flipped the other way to exit. But when we come over here and we go up a level, it actually has to be the opposite way. But the torches give us that automatically. They are inverting the signal, so it just works out. So let's say if I press this one, see this one now flipped. So we would come past all of these, because they're all turning this way, and we'll pass this one because it's going the other way, but this one has flipped, and we'll leave out this exit, which happens to be the third button. So that's this design. I do have one additional design, but we'll get to that in a minute. So, these can basically be, you know, as I said, extended up to 15 buttons. And, you know, 15 destinations is a decent amount. But I had an application where I needed about twice that. And I showed off in an earlier video, so I'll just do quickly here. This is my 30 station. Basically, I have two 15 push button selectors, and I have a special circuit hooked up to their the reset of one. Well, actually, the reset of both of them, so that when one is reset, signal travels over and also resets the other. These also have, you know, there's a reset, and there's the little ladder up. These also have my lockout circuit on both of them hooked up. And so you can see this one is on right now, and I will push a button over here, and you heard the first reset go, and then you saw the second one, and of course there we go. From putting all the items back in, it just had to be reset once before it started working. But that's how it works. I have torches going up for another little component, but I use them to show the inverse selection. Yeah, so the thing is, now we have two selectors, so how do we know which one to go to? Well, I invert these to get back the original. Well, I double invert them to get up, and so one side will have power. You can see this, because this one is selected, this torch comes on, this has power. This side has none selected, so here's the same torches. They're all out. We really only need to do this on one side, but I basically get a signal from that, and I power or depower a torch, which turns the track up here towards the side that you have selected. In this case, it's to the right. So then you are directed over here, and here's just a bigger version of the 2-level track switch schema. I also have, it looks a little more complex, but I have basically a mechanism. So each of these lines will be in or out. So when you come in, you are directed this way to one of the cart collectors that I showed before. And this is just a variation of the stand on the pressure plate and get a cart system. Another neat feature here, which you just kind of saw but really didn't, is there's a tripwire here. So empty carts, I'm not sure if you caught that, but the empty cart was redirected all the way here, and you just heard the lockout reset. See it, but standing on here, the system is now locked out. I can press that button, nothing happens. So the empty cart will come all around and come this way. If you are a rider, you'd be redirected up to the top here, and then you finally exit, and then the lockout would reset. The timer for the lockout is controlled by this loop of comparators, and let me just grab a torch real quick. So basically, you power them. They basically power themselves. It travels around 1 second. It takes 1 tick per repeater. When it gets here, it the signal strength decays by 1. So until these all turn out, that's how long the delay is, and that's read by this repeater, which then has a signal going off to both sides for the lockout. And we have actually a little indicator light for the lockout. So this is one version of this station. It's kind of, well, one part is completed, the other half is open, so you can see how it works. I do have a completely decorated version over here. It's enclosed, I won't say as small as I can get it, but it's pretty small. See, the front looks all nice. You got a little cart going back and forth. There is a door to get in the maintenance area. There's some space down here, but you go inside. It looks decent. I mean, it could be made to look nicer, but it doesn't look terrible. Got some signs to tell you how to use it. Works just the same way. It's the exact same design, just enclosed and have like a roof on it. So there is another layout for these tracks that I mentioned earlier. I'm going to show you that now, and I'll show you this. So I came across, well, playing around, trying to make it tighter. Basically, for that version over there, the lockout is 15 seconds because it takes you about 14 seconds to get through both levels. This design is bigger it's bigger, but it's not. It's bigger if you count all these straight tracks, which you don't need to have them. This design basically will have you coming out the front and the back. You get 7 out the back and 8 out the front. You could have these tracks turned to just come out the side, and it would take up less room that way, but then it would be harder to route these incoming lines. So the incoming line, if you come in the back here, you're directed down, across, and kind of back up, and then down to the cart collector. If you come in the front, kind of similar, but you kind of go down on a zigzag path. But basically, leaving, you come out this track, and you do have two switch tracks. This is a switch track, and this is a switch track right next to each other. But then, because of the way it works out, these next two aren't switch tracks. These will always be turned this way. But then these next two are switch tracks. So we alternate basically 2 on, 2 off, 2 on, 2 off. And the way these have to be powered is one is powered on and the other is not powered. And let's press a button here. So if I push this first button, you can see this has turned. So now you'll come up and you'll come straight out this way. If I push the second button, this flipped back and this one turned. So now you'll come out and you'll be directed right this way. And then, as I said, the next two tracks never turn. But then these two, and there is the way this is wired up. I won't say it's a problem, but well, I could put a. There are two places where something you saw before that this one was turned as well. That would never cause a problem. Maybe it would have. It won't cause a problem now. I had to add an extra repeater. But it won't cause a problem now. Somehow I missed that earlier when I was testing this. Yeah, so I wouldn't really say to use this design. It takes a lot more track. It's a lot more complicated. You need basically to run lines sort of next to each other and pass each other. So I have the one line come straight across, the other line drops down to just to not interfere, and then has a bit of a torch tower up. So that's how this works. This does cuts in half the amount of time you need the switch locked out, because if you're going to the end, you're basically just coming up and then going along this diagonal, and once you get here, it's safe to turn off the lockout. So it's a lot quicker than the 2-level design. But as you can see, it kind of takes up more room. This is what it kind of looks like enclosed. You got a just big open area. I got some glowstone every so often to keep this place lit up. But this seems to work decently. But then you're seeing this, and you're saying, how did he get lines right next to each other? Does this actually work? This is actually somewhat old design. I've kind of made a simpler circuit for it, because 1.5 and earlier didn't allow things, or maybe earlier than 1.5 didn't allow things, but this is inspired by Buckslice and official TJP. I believe Buckslice originally came up with a design like this just after pistons were introduced, and official TJP sort of modernized it. I forget which version I was actually able to download. This is my take, or this was my original take on the design. The original in the the map that I had downloaded was more complex than this. I then further simplified it down to this. Yeah, this is the simplified version, so it's still rather complex. But basically, how this works is, imagine this was connected to the selector panel, and I wanted to go to the third track. So I flip this up, and you heard a bunch of pistons go. But basically, what happens is it pulls. This is a row of pistons that controls the floor. It pulls that one that you selected back, making a hole. The signal is then transferred up, and through I won't call this clever, but through a tricky little circuit here, the lines are shifted over, or in this case, this way one. So that, this was right here would be where the first switch was. So it was 1, 2, 3, but I shifted that over one. So the important thing is this block is getting powered by that repeater. So that makes this piston, the one behind where the hole opened, push down. And basically, that's needed because if you're going fast enough, the cart can skip over the hole, but if there's a block there, it'll hit the block and then go down. It guarantees it won't skip over the hole. Then we need to shift the signal back. So it's not exactly the same circuit, but it's pretty close. We shift it back, and then that pulls up this block, which is right in line with the hole. Why that is needed, when the cart comes, here I just have it hooked up to the launcher, but in the actual design I have a detector rail. The cart comes, we need to move these tracks into position. If the tracks are over these blocks when these blocks get pulled away, or if they are pushed and the block isn't there, the track will break. It'll pop off as an item, and that that'll cause problems. It's also let's pull out the sticky piston again. A problem. Let's just do something like that. This should work. If I put the torch here. If you had the track directly on the block and tried to move them both at the same time, the track breaks as well. That is why the track starts off to the side and then only moves into position when the cart comes. So I'll demonstrate. Yeah, so we pull this block up so that when the cart comes, that's this signal, it moves. These pistons over here get powered through these blocks, but because this one is pulled up, that one won't get powered. Oops. So this one won't move over. This one will attempt to move over, but because I have a furnace over here, and furnaces are unmovable, this piston won't be able to extend. So really, we kind of need two tracks not to move. We are doing the one by not powering it, but the others where the other here, we are just relying on the fact that certain blocks are unmovable by pistons. All the other tracks will move over, and that's fine. They won't cause problems. So let's put that down, push the button. You can see the tracks move over. The cart hits the block, falls into the hole, and drops onto the third rail and came out here. But you're thinking, hey, wait, there's not enough room for a rider. Well, that's yes and no. There isn't enough room for a rider, but because these are all glass blocks don't cause suffocation damage if you get in them. So, game mode survival. You can see I now have hearts, and that hurt, and I fell off. That was kind of stupid. if I put this cart down and get in and push the button, you can see I went through that without any problem. There. So, I can flip this off and then like flip that one on. And you can see now, similar thing. We open this hole, this glass block went down. This moved up, and we are ready for here. Not sure if an empty cart will make it long enough. As I said, if it was a full cart, let me get in it. What happened? Why didn't we get? There we go. With the rider, it definitely has enough momentum to make it. It's just a few extra things with this one. Why do we have these pistons here? What are they for? As you can see, in this case, this one is down. The way these are getting powered, if I tried to power the block right above these pistons, it would power this piston, but also the ones on both sides. So I power the block 2 blocks above the piston, and that would power the piston, except the piston doesn't realize it. So I need to update the piston, and the way I do that is on alternating sides, because I have, you can see I have a repeater here and just a piece of redstone here, but on this side I have redstone and a repeater on the other side. So this redstone will activate this piston if this line was on, and because this piston updates, it causes an update on this piston, and he realizes he should move because the block 2 blocks above him is powered. And so basically kind of using a bud effect to get one piston only of this group of glass pistons to move down. So that's what the alternating side pistons are for. Then the only thing here is this is just a pulse extender. The button will turn on for about 1.5 seconds, but I need longer for that to get the cart all the way to the end. So this just extends it out by that's almost 1 second longer. So that is this design. So this is all set up for hooking up to a selector. As you can see, we have 1 input per row, and we got 1 line per row. And so that is what this design is over here. It's a little complex. It's a little bigger than, that design. It's definitely wider because you need all this extra piston. But again, this only takes you about 7 seconds to get through from launching compared to 15 for that 2-level design. So this is the exact same circuit I just showed off. Again, instead of a button, we have this detector rail that pushes in here. I got a bit of a longer delay because this is longer. This delay is mostly just to be safe. Again, this has kind of the same rider detector. As a note, I don't think this works anymore in the pre-releases. I had a little short video on that as well. But right now you can see it works fine. We're in 174. Sends you underneath all the way across here and collects the cart. When you're coming in, this is a bit tricky. I don't know if you noticed before, but I've got a big N with an arrow. This direction is north. So using the southeast rule, if it's kind of not really a rule, but it's something built into the game's code that if a cart hits another track like this without a specific turn, the cart will head either south or east. So in this particular build, this is south. So the cart's coming in will turn south and go to get collected. So here we go. We got our 15 exits out this side. We got 15 out this other side. This is kind of the decorated side. A little hard to see with this the default texture pack through this glass, but I kind of like the look of the mechanism, so I left a big window so you can see it operate. And this version, I also have a fully decorated version of this that you can just copy into your world if you want. Old minecart going around here, and basically it looks very similar on the inside. Since we're not coming down from above, this is a little different. But the little maintenance area is now accessed through here. It's a little tighter because there's more stuff going on. Yeah, I didn't have a door here in the front because of just everything that's going on. You don't need all those torches, but those torches are to... well, actually, you do need all those torches. They're to power these hill rails. And that's my different designs for stations using selector switches. I'm going to move on to some exotic or non-standard strange stations. And that's kind of this area over here. So our first strange station is this four-way station here. This was inspired by, let's see, an idea by Teapotted. Not exactly how his was implemented. He basically used trapdoors to slow down certain minecarts, and I've kind of used them in a slightly different way, but it still involves tracked jumping, which is what his worked on. I do have a sign here that says it only works east-west, but you can actually make it work different ways. And originally, the problem is building this. And if you, as this kind of shows, if you place them, I'll do this over here. You know, you build that, you can then build this, but if you try to do it this way, build that, but when you put that down, it turns the wrong way. But later playing around, if you just put a track there, you can then build this part and then delete the track, and you're actually okay. So you can actually build this in different directions. So the way this works, we have two tracks down here, and if this wasn't here at all, or is flipped up, and you have a cart, the cart will be traveling fast enough to jump over this first track and reach the second track. However, if this trapdoor is down and the trapdoor is connected to the bottom of this upper block, so it is now directly in line with the track, the cart will hit the trapdoor and fall down onto the first track, basically making this a two-way switch without actually switching any of the rails. And I basically just repeated the procedure further down, and making a four-way switch out of this. Now, kind of like the four-way push button station I showed off in the last video, there's 4 push buttons here. And the way it's wired up, you can see the colors here correspond to the colors down there. Is the further buttons will both power this line on the nether bricks, which will move this trap door up and down. So if I push the yellow, you can see the trap door moves, same as if I push the green. However, also, so that's those 2 buttons, and the 2 buttons on this side, if pushed, if either of them are pushed, will flip the trapdoors down there. So you can see both of those are up now, and the green button does the same, it also flips. So that gives you your 4 buttons. This one doesn't flip any trapdoors, this one only flips that one. The blue only flips those 2, and the green flips both those 2 and that one. And no matter which one you press, the rail here is powered. See that? It takes you a little bit of time to get down to these lower 2, so I just kind of like the lockout circuit, but this is just 2 comparators. So when you push this, this turns on, and then you can see the pulse slowly fades. It takes a few seconds, but that keeps those flipped in the proper orientation. The thing is, all right, how do you get the cart there? Well, in this design, and I doubt this is optimal. You'll probably come up with something better. I have a little circuit, well, not circuit, but tracks redirect you over here, and you are pushed up. If you were in the cart, you'd be going faster than that. And you basically drop onto it from above, and then you can choose where you'd like to go. And it's yellow, so we jump far there, but we don't jump far here, and we wind up on the yellow. So that's a interesting station. It's kind of big, but it uses a neat mechanic. Not really sure how useful it is, but it's a design I haven't seen in other places, so that's why I have this here. In 1.8, or at least the pre-releases, this is also affected slightly, that you need to make each drop here is only 2 blocks. I found in 1.8 you need to make it 3 blocks in order for the cart to get all the way across. It would not get all the way across. It would always, if the drop was only 2 blocks, it would always land on the first one in the pre-releases. So that's one difference to note. This has all been in 1.7.4 so far. I will be, for the last video, moving on to the pre-releases for the one effect, or the one new item frame and comparator operation. This is a neat mechanism. It's a non-stop switch inspired by JL2579, Cabo PC, and Sandcarn. You actually should check out their videos. They have built a whole system of stations and turns, and it's pretty good. Check it out. Basically, their whole system relies on one-way travel, having 2 track lines, one heading north, the other heading south, running next to each other or near each other. And then you can have basically a system where you don't need to stop at a station to choose a new direction to go, or to choose that you even want to stop at a station. They just put these trap chests every so often. In this case, this is not exactly their design. This is kind of a design inspired by their design. But let's say I'm coming around this system like this cart is, and instead of going straight, I want to turn off onto a branch to the right, or let's say this is a station, I want to stop at this station. So as I'm coming around and riding on the track, and I decide I want to get off, I just open the chest. Well, I kind of timed that wrong. Let's see. I open the chest. And the cart goes around to the side. It will let me actually get in, and it'll be easier to demonstrate. So I come around, I open the chest, and I'm directed to the side. There we go. How this works? Well, trap chests give off a redstone signal when they're opened. So we just use a repeater to strengthen that signal and transmit it down. And that turns off this torch, which will flip this circuit. And again, depending on the orientation, this will need to be either a torch or just a spot of redstone. Or you could power this from underground. You know, you don't need this above the track. It could be like next to the track. Again, I have a small little repeater timer here. Not repeater. Comparator timer. So by powering this block, the comparator powers itself, but the strength decreases. So this just keeps it on long enough in case you happen to open and close it before you actually get to the intersection. One thing I should note is that you just really need to open it, and once you get far enough away from the chest, it automatically closes. So, see, the torch goes out, and then half a second after you close it again, it comes back on. So definitely, yeah, check out the videos that these guys made. They have a really nice system with inline stations and corners, and you know, it's all based on two-way travel. So they got, you know, a whole system that kind of, you know, they got 3 ways you can go, and they basically hook up chests, and so you can from here either go straight or turn to the right, or here turn left or right, or coming here go straight or turn to the left. It's not this close. I think they have like a few more spaces between their lines, but you can actually adjust how much space is between the lines. But they have a really cool system. I'll show you this next. I have actually 2 versions of this, because this version works here in 1.7.4, but doesn't under the 1.8 pre-releases, and I had to kind of make this more complex version, but it does work under the pre-releases. And did I... maybe I should have left that there. Alright. Show you this version first, because it's a little simpler. So how this works is, again, you drop in from the top, and you're in a minecart here, and there's 4 lines coming out, and you got 4 buttons. So you're on a powered rail, and there's nothing over here, but you basically push a button. These pistons here will push the powered rail over to that line, and then turn the power rail on, and you'll exit. I guess I call this a, well, sliding track selector. So there's the track, and slides over, turns on, and then retracts. And then for that one, it just slides over 1, do green again, slides over 2, and it looks like it briefly comes on as you're being pushed over, but it's not enough to get you moving. And for the red one, we just turn it on. So how this works is we gotta triple piston extender, horizontal triple piston extender, that has been modified to extend 1, 2, or 3, depending on which button you press, or obviously if you press red it doesn't extend at all. This happens to be Kid Mischief HD's triple piston extender, but as I said, this design does not seem to work in 1.8. I'm not sure what exactly changed during the timing, but it does extend, but it doesn't fully retract in the pre-releases. So briefly how this works is these torches down here power these powered rails, which power that one if, all is well because they're connected. That is powered from these circuit right here. And basically, no matter which button you press, the torch on the back here will turn on, and then after 8 ticks of delay, 9, 10, 11, with these torches and counting these torches themselves. So that's how much time this triple piston extender has to work. If you press the yellow, that basically turns on this spot of redstone, which powers just the first piston. Pushing either green or blue activates the whole triple piston extender, which basically power comes in here. These are timed to fully extend, and then they start turning off, which starts the retraction. But then this circuit here sends out a pulse, and these timings are set up so that as it's retracting, because it can't immediately re-extend, the pulse toggles these in the right order so that they kind of pull back the correct ones. So that's the full triple piston extension and retraction. Let's see if I can show you that quick. Yeah, I really couldn't fully explain how this works. It just does. Check out Kid Mischief HD's video. I believe he sings the tutorial. To get double piston extension, I basically use this piston here, powered by this torch, retract, and move that block out of the way. So this piston will never extend, but I run the whole normal triple piston extension routine. I'll show you that now. See, that gets pulled back. We run the whole triple piston extension routine, and then that's put back. So that is just, there's this little delay circuit here that keeps that pulled out of the way long enough to not get activated. And so that's how double piston extension works. So that's this. It's relatively simple for having a triple piston extender that variable extends by 1, 2, or 3. Unfortunately, like I said, this doesn't seem to work in the pre-release. Some slight timing changed with pistons or repeaters, or I'm not entirely sure what changed. So I came up with this design, which is a fair bit more complex. This uses Mazuma Games' flush horizontal triple piston extender, and it was originally flush in 3 directions, and that was useful to me for getting wires in to do the single and double piston extension, but it used a redstone block, and normally in his design the redstone block would be right against this piston, but of course that would power these lines. So yeah, it became a bit more complex, so I have a double piston extender in here as well to move and remove that as needed, but then you need a block here if you just want to launch. So then there's a piston over here that will actually, there's a piston down below that will move that block up. When the redstone block is in there for the triple piston extension, it comes forward, which pushes all these blocks out of the way, so they got to be moved back. There's probably a better way to make this that does work in 1.8. But this is what I came up with, and it's kind of scary in its complexity, and it's kind of neat because of that. So for single piston, that comes up, or not even single piston, not going anywhere. This piston comes up as a backer block, and we power these. Again, they're all powered from below. For double or single extension, I'm not even sure how I did that. Let's see. Yes, there's a circuit powering just that piston from below. Right here. Double piston extension works here. It's kind of the default 240. But some extra delays are added in. And I'm not entirely sure how that works because there's no blocks, but I'm guessing the repeaters just themselves getting powered. If you put blocks there, it actually makes it break. And it also accidentally powers this, but that's not a problem. And finally, for the full triple piston extension, yeah. I'm not even going to try to explain how this works. Just know that it does. This is the triple piston extender circuit here. It's got a bunch of hopper dropper combos to get pulses out at particular moments. This is just a double piston down extender that activates a split second before to get this redstone block in the way. And the timing has to be quick. You drop it from above like before. Timing has to be quick so the cart isn't launched out. Seems it takes a tick or two after the rails get powered for the cart to move. But yeah, this is basically the same as that, except this does work in 1.8, but is a lot more complicated. Or at least the 1.8 pre-releases. 14W07 is the latest as of my recording here. Basically I have two more classes of designs. This is what I call a ticket-based station. Let's get some room here. So, you come up here. I mean, you can build this partially on the ground to not have this. But let's say you want to go to line 6, which is the light blue line. You open up this chest. You take a light blue block. Come over here. You get in the cart. The light is, when the light is on, your ticket is being read. And when the light goes out, you'll then be launched. So you get in the cart, you drop your ticket down here. See the light come on, ticket's being read. Light goes off, you're sent on your way. And we come out the light blue line. This is not the best design, the way I did these, but basically there's sort of latches here that then reset, but these pistons will either have a block here or move it back, which turns on or off this spot of redstone. There's better ways I can do it. The next design I do this better, but basically the way this is done is I have an item sorter. And the item sorter is set up for all the colors here. There's red, orange, yellow, etc., matches the colors there. So you drop your block in. It basically sets off a timer because hoppers only move one item every 4 ticks, or 4/10 of a second. So it actually takes quite a bit of time for this last line to get flipped if you put in purple. So if you would launch right away, you would basically be passing by this block and past that point before the block even got here to flip it. So that is why there's the delay. The delay is all done under here. This is basically a circuit that detects that you've put in any block and then lets that block through, and it kicks off. Again, I use a comparator delay here, and then that triggers this, which is what sends you on your way. And then there's another short delay that signals the reset. This is a reset line here that puts the block back into the default position. And here, this just basically turns on and off the lamp. The lamp is right on the other side of that block. As you see, after you launch, another cart is automatically placed in here. If you come back into the station, that's this line here. Or actually, if you put in a block that this doesn't have a repeater or a sorter for, you basically are sent back here and returned to the station. And your cart is collected and put back in the system. There's actually a chest here full of carts that gets filled when a cart comes in, but that's what's used for putting the cart back here. So you can see this one is kind of, it takes, I forget the exact amount of time. It takes a good amount of time, maybe 10 seconds, for the sorter to get all the way down here, and there's only 8 lines right here. So you really wouldn't want to extend this too much further because you'd be basically doubling the amount of time you have to wait. But as you can see, I have an item selector only every other line. That kind of makes it easy, no matter what's selected, or if it's not at all, the items just come back and get put in this line. They are fed back here. We got a little item elevator that lifts the blocks up. Yeah, the blocks do get kind of, in this case it was, it stopped at the top and didn't get totally out, but the next time a block comes in, that one will get out. But eventually the tickets are returned to the ticket chest, and there's enough in there, so you won't run out. But one way this can be improved is, as I said earlier, I only have a sorter every other. Putting it every one would be problematic, as I showed before. But again, more at that on the end of the video, which is actually next. So this doubles the capacity by having an item sorter at every possible location, just on opposite sides. So it still takes the same amount of time to get to for the item to get to the end and be sorted if it is sorted. But we have twice as many possible rail lines. This one I use traditional latch design, and it actually is much narrower. This top line here is the reset line, so it sets all of these back, and that's this design. It's otherwise it's the same. Had to route the return line all the way down here, so the item elevator needs to be taller. But otherwise it's the same, but you get twice as many twice as many tracks in there. Okay, finally, what I've been saying this whole time is you can't have a turn every single line. It turns out that that's not entirely correct. I was actually yesterday shown this design. Now it's a real pain to set up. Let's get levers. I'll set up a small, so let's say this is our line coming in, and we got track there, track there, track there. So this has 5 exits, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and this is where we come in. And as I showed before, yeah, none of these want to turn because there's no free ends for them to turn to. But what you can do is, hopefully I have this right. This one will turn now because there's 2 free ends. And then if I put a block down here, alright, that one will turn. Put that back now. This will still turn. That will turn. And then that will turn. Let's flip that on. So right now, we'll pass through. If we want to go out this line, though, we would have to flip that one down, flip that one down, flip that one down, then we'll go out that line, and then if we want to reset this back, we have to do it in the opposite order. And if we flip any one of these in the wrong time, like that, well, we basically risk getting this into the locked out position, and now none of these will, well, that one will flip, but yeah, now you're kind of stuck. So yeah, I basically kind of showed off. You can also have it kind of set up this way, so this will exit out that way, but if we want to exit out, let's say that one, we flip these in order, and then we'll exit out that one, and then we can flip them back. So, yeah, making a circuit to do that. I tried making a circuit off of this push button selector to do that, and I was actually sort of successful, but I don't actually have this hooked up to a track, but you can see the lights up there. If I, let's say, push this button, let's get close enough so I can push that button. The lights light up one at a time, and if I come back and push this button, they will turn off in the proper order as well. And you can obviously go all the way, and then come back. But, wow, this is frighteningly complex. Basically, I have to, well, the one part of the trick is right here. I have a stairway of half slabs, so that if you power one particular line, well, let's say I'll just turn on the middle. That's close enough to the middle. So really, only this is outputting. So that powers this line. But half slab stairs only power in the up direction. They don't power in the down direction. So that basically gives me this one and all of them to this side get powered. But they'll all get power at the same time. So how do I get the move, power in one direction, then unpower in the, basically this is a ABBA switch, supersized to A, B, C, D, E, F, FEDCBA switch with outputs on every single block. Yeah. So what I do is each of these lines gets split into an upper and a lower line. And actually, wow, how did that... Not even sure how that was working. That's supposed to be like that. I guess I know how that... This really should have one more button that turns everything off. How this works is each of these lines gets split into an upper and lower line, except for this last one. The upper line is used when this is... well, they're both used. But the upper line is the timing for turning it on. So this one, as you can see, has no delay here. The bottom line is for turning it off. So this has a lot of delay. So because this has a lot of delay, if it loses power, which it actually won't ever will, but if I had one more button here that was not hooked up to anything, this would lose power, but it would go through 5 fully set repeaters first. So it would take a long time. So basically that means it will turn on quickly, but take a while to turn off. This next row has 2 ticks of delay for turning on, and it has 2 ticks less of a delay for turning off. So it will take a bit longer to turn on, but a bit shorter to turn off. And then again, the next one down has another 2 ticks extra delay turning on, and another 2 ticks less delay turning off, etc., until we get to this last line, which has the same, has one set of delays, and it turns on and turns off with that delay. So basically, this one will turn on first, then this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. But then turning off, this one will turn off first, then this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. As I said again, I just have lamps up here for testing it out, because this is not practical. It's not efficient. Yeah. This was just seeing if I could be done. And actually, I almost gave up on this design because I came up with this design. This is a piston loop with redstone blocks, and this is exactly what we want. When the blocks are down here, they will power the turns, and as you can see, if we come in this way, we'll come out the first exit. But if I push this button, you can see the redstone loop moved around once. We got one redstone block here. Now we'll come over to the second one. If we push this again, you see the next one is flipped. Push this again, and the next one's flipped. And I'll just do one more. And then we have a button over here that flips it the other way and rotates the piston loop back in the opposite direction. And you can see it works. Problems with this is, well, if it's on the first one and you want to go to the last one, that's a lot of button presses. I don't currently have a way to automate this to get this to a particular position. Second, there's no display, at least on this side, of its current position. So that's problems with that. So then I came up with this design, and I'll briefly show you over here how it works, partially. So I was actually sort of playing with this for the triple piston extender until I realized I didn't need this. You see over here. Brief aside, this is kind of a strange version of my selector, but it does work. It kind of lights up more than it needs to when you push the button, but it works. Reset line up here. In this case, the torch turning, any torch turning off will turn on the reset line, and then when that button pops out and the torch comes back on is when it actually moves the item up from the basically the block here getting powered powering the lower dropper. Anywho, here I was playing with the triple piston extender. This is something I was playing with. So, push the button here. Just the first one comes on. You push this button. 2 of them come on. I do have pistons just on the other side. They don't actually do anything. You push this one. See 1, 2, 3 comes on. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the way this works is basically... well, didn't really mean to do that, but... Power this. It powers this block. This block not only powers that repeater, but it powers the redstone on the side, which then powers this block. And that's because there's a missing repeater here. That's why this one, well, should be why that one comes on first. If this was set on 2, the first 2 would come on at the same time. Because basically this row, all of these rows over here have 2 holes. This row only has 1 hole, so you need the extra tick delay on these to get it all lined up. But that's how this partially works. Well, how it works. So this gets us halfway there. It gets us turning on in the right order, but it also turns off in that order. What I found is if you increase the delay before these blocks to full, remember before it was turning on in that direction and then turning off in this direction, this will go the opposite way with only changing the 1 repeater delay. So what I actually did is made 2 of these, one on top of the other, and wired them up here. So the bottom one, and I have more buttons in this, you know, just pretend you have a button here. I actually, for testing, have this set up. This actually, you see I have the diagonal in the opposite direction, so this will go this way. But basically, the bottom is set to control the turning on in the proper order, from, in this case, from the right to the left. And then this one is set up with the extra delay in front of the blocks, and it controls the turning off in the other order. And basically, because there's the extra delay up here, the bottom signal does get through first before the top one does get through. And just need to lengthen the pulse. So you can see here we have the whole track set up. I'll push this button, which will activate as if you want to go out that way. And you can see it flips all the way that way, and then turning off it flips all the way back. Again, this is not practical. Maybe someone can figure out a practical way to implement this. But that's how this system works. We use the bottom. Never even totally fixed this up because I had to change it all around. There we go. That would have only affected if you tried to use one of those 2 buttons. It just wouldn't have worked. Let's do one of these buttons in the middle. And you can see we can race down here, flip back. So that's how this works. Again, like I said, it's not really practical, these designs. Maybe someone can figure out a practical design. The piston loop is basically the most practical design, but the problems of display and, you know, having to push the button multiple times instead of having just a push button that will flip the piston loop to the correct position make these not practical, but this will get you an exit every row without having your head go through glass. This is about wraps it up for this video. I would like, if you have any interesting designs that I haven't seen or haven't shown off here, I'd definitely like to hear about them. So leave a comment or a link to a video showing it off. The next video, we'll be covering analog redstone and uses in track selection. In particular, it's going to be using the new 1.8 feature of item frame selectors or item frame inputs. So I'll be on pre-release when I record that, and I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.